Welcome to episode 18 of the St. Charles podcast. I'm Eric Wood.
Father Mark Brown.
And we are here to talk about a few different things going on in the world of Anglicanism, starting with our brothers and sisters in the ACNA.
Oh my gosh, the ACNA, the poor guys. If you watch the blogs and the Facebook pages and you listen and see the priests are basically crying out, how much longer, dear Lord? And so the laity are starting. Now, Bishop Julian Dobbs put out something that George Conger talked about last night.
And he's the new dean of the province, who's acting archbishop.
He's acting archbishop, trying to say, we're sorry, we're going to do better, we hear you. Okay, well, we hear you, how is that going to translate into we're changing? So that's going to be the interesting thing. You may not remember this, but back in the 90s, Bill Clinton's big thing is, I feel your pain. You have this very rich man in the White House feels the pain of the poor. He doesn't.
Well, he did come from a trailer.
He came from a trailer, but a lot of folks, some like him, he forgot all about that.
Yeah.
Okay, because the way he did things, and the way if it wasn't for Newt Gingrich and the Republicans back then, we would have looked at a Biden. If it was Hillary Clinton and all them, it would have been a Biden administration in the 90s. But that's history. So what we have is the ACNA. They're still under a lot of pressure, still a lot of crazy things going on. What is it? I never get this bishop's name right. Roosh?
Roosh.
The 16th of December, his verdict comes down. We'll see how that is handled. They have the presentment against Bishop Derek Jones, which I find odd since he's no longer in the ACNA, according to records. And I think his own words.
I think it depends on who you ask.
Yeah, I think it depends on who you ask. So is he going to sit there and during the presentment, or are they going to have a mannequin with a name tag hung over it, Bishop Jones?
Now that would be a spectacle.
That would be a spectacle. Well, that whole thing with him is turning into a spectacle. There's actually on the civil side lawsuits, and from some of the folks I've heard and just listened to and talked to, he's got a civil lawsuit against the ACNA, and if he can prove they did it maliciously, their insurance companies are not going to pay, which means the ACNA will be on the hook for the millions of dollars if he wins. All this is if. Mm-hmm. People will say, "What? I used to be in insurance. Even our car policies have little clauses in there that nobody reads, but if you were committing a felony at the time of the accident, the insurance company's not going to pay for anything."
I will say this, his lawyers are the best of the best.
Derek Jones?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And that is one thing a lot of the coverage that I've read about this seems to miss, is we are dealing with the top echelon of the legal profession here. And that is, it just is what it is.
Oh, it is. I've heard some of them worked in the Department of Justice under various presidents. So it's... George Conger, a couple of weeks ago, Bishop Jones had 4 injunctions he filed in court. And they focused on the one he lost. And he won 3. I'm looking at this. If you have 4 and you get 75% of them, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, but every case is different. So it could be like you win the 3 little ones that everyone knows you're going to win, and here's the 4th big one that involves the most money, the most exposure. I haven't followed the case that closely to know all those details.
Right.
But it's a challenging situation because I generally have found Reverend Conger's discernment to be as good as it gets.
Oh, yeah.
Over the years, I've just seen so many, as someone who came out of like the conservative side of the Episcopal Church, like he was a voice for people that didn't have a voice for a long time. And I developed this trust for him because I've seen him be right about so many things, one after another.
Yeah.
He's got an incredible track record.
He does. We'll see. We'll see how it goes and what happens with it. And so I thought we got the presentment for the Archbishop. And his inhibiting ends, it's only 60 days.
They'll have some meeting before then, though. I think
they're having it this month, before Christmas, sometime in Advent. So we'll see what comes out of that.
I think that's where they decide to go forward with like a formal trial or to quash it, essentially. And at this point, I just don't see how you can quash it.
There's more out there. Right now, everybody's really focusing on what the lady said and then the second lady said. And they're not seeing the other charges against him for misuses of funds, misuses of property.
The sermons where he's plagiarizing.
Yeah,
Allegedly.
yeah, there we go. And we got all that. And everybody has convicted. Now, I'm going to say right now, I'm not a fan of Archbishop Wood. Okay? Never have been. Really coalesced after what he interjected himself into the Reformed Episcopal Church about Father Robinson. And that's when I started looking, and I found out, talking from some friends in the ACNA, they've never liked him. Even his own diocese has had issues with him.
That's when presiding Bishop Ray Sutton of the REC gave Father Robinson a 1-year temporary license.
Right. Now, the REC is a jurisdiction, not a diocese in the ACNA. So the REC's canons supersede the ACNA's canons.
Because it's been around 150 years.
Yeah, they're not going to give up all their identity to the startup group called the ACNA, which goes against a lot of what the REC has stood for.
Well, the REC is a little different financially too, where it has 150 years of endowments building up to where it has financial footing.
It can stand alone.
It's not a startup.
No, it's not a startup. It can stand alone. But he interjected himself into the canons of the REC, and Bishop Sutton should have done what we would say in the Marine Corps, told the Archbishop to go pound sand, because the Archbishop didn't have the authority to do that. But Bishop Sutton did what he did. But we haven't seen a defense from Archbishop Wood. So far, the internet has tried and convicted him. I'm old enough to remember what happened to the Duke lacrosse team back in the 90s. These young boys, college boys, yes, they did something stupid with a prostitute. And she claimed all of them raped her. And the district attorney, politically wanting the black vote, went after these boys. They lost their scholarships, they lost their school, lost their reputation, they were smeared, and they were never taken to court, and they were never formally charged, and everything went away when they found out the prosecutor mishandled. He's actually disbarred. And it's during that Me Too movement when a woman could say anything and everybody believed him. And we watched a group of young men. Now, I'm sure they're in what, 30s or 40s.
It was like the precursor to the Me Too. This was like the first phase of like
first stuff. And, and I'm like, there's only very few women, mainly in my family, that I'm going to blanketly believe. After I watched that debacle play out on TV and watch the news media crucify these young men who, morally, they did some stupid stuff, but they didn't do anything criminal.
Well, we have a justice system and all these principles that fly in the face of like what Me Too would stand for. Like, we need discernment. We don't need blanket rules one way or another.
No.
You need to look at each situation.
Each situation, what's going on by itself. The Me Too movement has harmed actual victims of assault, because now you look at every woman who claims it, you go, what's your angle? And that's a horrible thing that has been reduced to because you've had these unscrupulous DAs or women or whatever claiming these things, knowing so I'm not going to sit here and convict the Archbishop until I see a defense.
I hear that, but it just rings so overwhelmingly. When I read the evidence, I read the stuff, it's just like, wow.
I look at it, I can go, yep, get rid of him. But I want to hear a defense. Is there I guess it's like maybe a Hail Mary. Okay, here's your Hail Mary. See if you can explain this away. And if you can't, well, we're going to put you under the jail, so to speak. I want to kind of give that pastoral, let me listen.
I have a problem with the rector's discretionary fund stuff. Like, I remember having to like look over receipts of what, just generally, some pair of eyes as someone on the vestry to look at what is this money being spent on. And it would usually be like $80 to homeless person. I mean, just like whatever, you know? But I never recall a check of $3,500 to an individual, and much less someone that works there.
No.
Like, that is a unusual discrepancy that requires a convincing explanation. And I haven't heard any convincing explanation for that. And then you put all the other accusations that surround this transaction that just, it occurred. Like,
right,
it's in
and
the
nobody
check
said
stub.
anything. I have a credit card. The treasurer and I, every month.
Someone has to lay eyes
Somebody
on
lays eyes on. We just did at a budget meeting. And now it's going to the vestry on Sunday. But two eyes looked at it. Well, I ordered the vestments. What did I do? had other people, at least 3 sets of eyes looked at it before the check was cut. You have to have those checks and balances. I have a discretionary fund. The most I ever gave was when one of the attorneys here in the parish contacted me about one of his clients whose power was getting cut off, and then a parishioner whose power was getting cut off. Well, I just didn't hand that money out without at least talking to the treasurer. Say, hey, look, or to the senior warden, hey, I'm giving out of the discretionary fund $100, $200. Most of the time it's $20 here, $5 here, and that's it. And I have a little ledger. Would it pass IRS scrutiny? Probably not, but you can see where the money's going. And I can't believe he could write checks and give that much money to somebody without somebody in parish leadership saying something.
Exactly. And you have all these tax implications too, that when you give a bonus, essentially what that is, it's a bonus to an employee, you have to account for that in their compensation to where you say this is what we paid them this year, and that's what they're going to pay taxes off of.
Right, you got to do that. So it's going to be interesting. December will be an interesting time in the ACNA to see what happens. I do know last past Sunday we had a few ACNA folks here that were traveling for holidays, and they kind of asked questions and we talked, and I can sense, this is anecdotal, but these ACNA, they're young people, not the older, the younger ones are very distraught is what they're seeing, and they're not happy. So bishops of the ACNA, you might want to get your house in order because your folks are getting upset.
I see people that feel the same way I did in 2021, where there is the 1,000-yard stare and you see people losing their trust in the institutional leadership of their organization. So for me, it was the Diocese of Alabama when I saw the best priest in the diocese get just persecuted wrongfully for succeeding in an Orthodox way. Yeah. And they just couldn't stand it, and they ran him off. And that experience shaped the way I view the church institution people, that we have people in these roles as bishop. Right. And they're not always perfect just because they have a title. No. And they can do really bad things to good people. And you see it, and it changes the way you view the institution.
Last night we had the Christmas parade out front. And out front I talked to Presbyterians, CREC, Methodists, Roman Catholics, Baptists. For some reason they saw the collar and we start talking, and every one of these groups, these lay folks, were complaining about the leadership and what they were doing or not doing. Listening to them, and most of them were young people, and they're losing trust in the church because of the antics of the leaders. I'm sitting here trying to not so much defend the different, but say, hey, don't lose your faith in God because of sinful people. I think I texted you last night. I didn't leave here at almost after 10 o'clock. After the parade was over, and I come back, and it's freezing. It was in the 20s with a wind chill. I come in, there were a line of people wanting to talk to me about the church, not just St. Charles, but about the church in general. There were Baptists, there were Catholics, there were non-denominationals, and some denominations I never heard of. And I was here, and most of them were young people. I'm talking 20s, early 30s, and just getting so disillusioned with the church because of what they see. And they're naming names, and I'm just not going to do that because some of them are pastors here in this city. And I'm just looking at this, and I'm thinking to myself, good Lord, what is going on? I thought it was just us Anglicans that are losing our minds, but it seems the Satan is attacking every denomination in the West, in Christendom, and we are still so tribal that I talked to folks back when Father Robinson was here. Hey, reach out to your pastor, see if we can get together and have a prayer service. No communion, no. We just sit down and say some prayers and stuff. Nothing. The ministers of this town, when I got here 5 years ago and I reached out, there's no ministers organization according to the Baptist pastors. There's nothing. I talked to the Roman Catholic guy across the street, Father Joy, who's now gone, And what is there? There's nothing. There's nothing here.
Part of it is that this town was very small in 1950, and you've had explosive growth for 75 years, and you did not have the traditional Southern institutions that a town this size would have because of that.
Yeah.
And it just,
I mean, this is the first town in my ministry as a Baptist and as an Anglican priest that there is no visible. I mean, I go to the Federal Society with you lawyers more than I do get together with pastors in this town. There's only one that I could get on a monthly basis to even have a cup of coffee with me, and he got transferred to Massachusetts. And I'm like, well, thank you.
part of that is the Huntsville culture. So if you go to Gadsden, which is where my dad's family's from, there is all of what you're talking about, where all these pastors get together on a regular basis and they're very engaged in all these different things. And in 1950, Gadsden was bigger than Huntsville. But because of the arsenal and NASA and all these things, we've just grown so fast with these people from all over the country that don't necessarily have the same like Southern worldview.
Oh, I know. I know. I saw some, I guess, original Huntsville folks on one of the Facebook pages about Huntsville. They're having a funeral, and all these people are just driving by. And even the guy putting it on the Facebook, he's driving, you know, and the back and forth was, you know, vicious, because it's what I try to tell. So when we go to a small town, I try to tell folks from a big city, hey, it's a different culture. You know, and I understand this is a different culture here, but I find it odd that that the church reflects that culture, because even in Mobile, which is an older city, bigger, you know, and I understand the growth and the people from all over the place, but the church should be the church, whether it's in Huntsville or Seattle or wherever. So, well, you know, let's jump over. So now we'll get out of ACNA. What's happening in March?
In GAFCON, we have a meeting of primates in Nigeria, and it is a fascinating dynamic where they are expected to elect a new primus inter pares, which would be the normal positioning of the Archbishop of Canterbury, and the timing will coincide with the enthronement of the in line to be Archbishop of Canterbury, Mrs. Mullally.
Yeah.
And that is going to be a watershed moment. And on the pastor's heart last week, Paul Donison put out the most recent GAFCON statement, which was essentially there will be no new information until the meeting of the primates, and then the meeting of the primates will speak.
Yeah.
And he had some interesting comments where he said, we want all Orthodox Anglican bishops that can affirm the Jerusalem Declaration to be here. It is an open invitation to everybody that can do that. And wow, what a time.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see if the flying bishops in the Church of England, they go to the enthronement, or are they going to go to GAFCON?
Will they take communion
Well,
from the because that's normally what would happen is after the enthronement there would be a communion
service. Yeah. So will they hold to their principles, or will they just cave, or will they go to GAFCON?
or will they not be there?
Or they not even be there? So
might be
it's
the
going to be
best move.
interesting. So March is going to be very interesting to see what's going on in the Church of England and in GAFCON. And this interesting thing, you and I have talked about it before, is the continuing church. The continuing church has been kind of isolationist, and they go after each other over the affirmation of St. Louis. You don't hold to it as good as we do or as well as we do. We're going to break communion with you like Haviland did with Presiding Bishop Robinson back in August, because the Presiding Bishop Robinson didn't hold to the affirmation of St. Louis as much as he should have, which I'd watched the Bishop Robinson say he holds to the affirmation, but now it's degrees. Well, are any of the continuing churches going to the meeting in Nigeria? Well, the affirmation of St. Louis, we say that we will do what? Seek communion
with all faithful parts of the Anglican communion.
And there's actually one here, it goes a little deeper. It says, unity with other believers. This is affirmation of St. Louis. We declare our firm intention to seek and achieve full sacramental communion and visible unity with other Christians. Notice it didn't say other Anglicans. Other Christians who worship the Trinity in unity and the unity in Trinity, and hold the Catholic and Apostolic faith in accordance with the foregoing principles that they listed earlier. Well, guess what? The Archbishop of Nigeria holds to that. So are we going to be in communion with the Archbishop of Nigeria? Now, what they will say, well, it's like the Reformed Episcopal Church. Why aren't we in communion with them? Well, they're in the ACNA. Right, they're in impaired communion with the ACNA. So if people don't understand that, the ACNA is not even in communion with each other.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of their dioceses that are in impaired communion with all the female ordination dioceses.
Right, so you have, not even the ACNA is unified. Okay, so what are we going to do with that? Or if we're going to hold to the affirmation of St. Louis as our baby, we're going to hang on to this. This is us. We got to do this.
Foundational charter.
That's foundational charter. Well, how many of our bishops or archbishops are going to go to Nigeria?
I've been thinking about this, Father, where it reminds me of stuff that Newman wrote about the development of doctrine. And I think when we apply that to the affirmation of St. Louis, it has definitely been developed doctrinally within some continuing bodies.
Yeah.
To where it is beyond the text of the document. And I think you're seeing a divide where some parts of the continuing church may look at it from more of a textual analysis of like, what did these people say? You have this group of Anglo-Catholic Anglicans that get together and craft this document. What does the text say? Right?
Right.
And then you have this other body that like has engaged in 40 to 50 years of doctrinal development to reach a position that is not necessarily what the affirmation says.
Right. We love to hold to it, but we don't really read it and follow it. Much like we will complain about the Episcopal Church. Oh, they read the scriptures, but they don't follow it. Well, we say we read the affirmation of St. Louis and we hold to it, but are we following it? Look at the landscape, are we? I mean, I think that's probably what got Bishop Giffen, one of the things, what got him in trouble in the continuing church, and they kicked him out because of it, because he raised questions like that. Maybe we're right, maybe we're wrong, but at least have the ability to talk and listen to an opposing opinion. Most of our archbishops and bishops cannot listen to an opposing opinion.
I think Bishop Giffen's biggest problem that he ran into was telling the truth to people that were not ready to hear the truth.
Right.
That's what he did wrong.
That's
it.
That's it. They didn't want to hear it. And and now you're starting to talk to some of the folks in this G2, and you're listening to them. I'm going, that sounds like a bishop I heard back in June. There's starting to be some little problems they're trying to gloss over in the G2. But why aren't we talking to GAFCON? Not every GAFCON province is like the Episcopal Church or the Church of England. So why aren't we talking to those? Why aren't we talking to Southeast Asia or Melanesia or Indonesia, which all are just like us, but in different parts of the world?
In a lot of ways, GAFCON is just like a larger version of the ACNA in the sense of like different parts of it have very different paradigms. And some of them we match up with fantastically.
Oh, yeah.
But then other parts of it are just different. So like the Church of Uganda and the Church of Rwanda are very invested in women's ordination. Church of Kenya. Like there's a lot of these large influential bodies within GAFCON that resemble parts of the ACNA that...
Or the Church of England or the Episcopal Church. Okay. Nigeria doesn't.
No, they don't. Nigeria is very similar to us.
Very similar to us. Southeast Asia, similar to us, and they're bigger than, like Southeast Asia's only been around since '95, and it's bigger than ACNA, us. I think there's more Anglicans in Southeast Asia, in India, than there are in the UK.
If we back up and we look at the global perspective, Nigeria is probably the center of global Anglicanism now.
It's the epicenter now.
It's got the largest church. It's got the infrastructure around it. And it would make a lot of sense for the Archbishop of Nigeria to be in that primus inter pares role. And from the continuing church's perspective, there's not a lot to object to with Nigeria. So the Church of Nigeria has had female deacons, and my understanding is in 2021, entered into some kind of moratorium where institutionally that's not supposed to be going on going forward. I think it is in some places, but it's like a geographic thing where
Right.
like some places are more into it than others. But the trajectory is very similar to our perspective. And I just can't think of a reason not to be in communion with the Church of Nigeria.
No, or the Reformed Episcopal Church, or Fort Worth, was it San Joaquin?
But what's even more compelling about the Church of Nigeria is if you just read the affirmation of St. Louis, and if you come from the prism of, hey, this is our foundational charter, let's stick to this, I don't think you can make a case to not, you're actually compelled to seek communion with the Church of Nigeria.
Yeah.
You have to.
You're compelled to. If you're going to hold to the affirmation of St. Louis, there's things that you should have done 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and even today. And if you're not going to follow it, well, then quit talking about it and put it in the historical record and move on.
But what better time than today to
Oh,
initiate
yes.
contact with the Church of Nigeria?
What better time? This would be the golden opportunity, because the continuing church is not only in the shadows. Sometimes we act like the crazy uncle you kept under the front porch and only brought him out for Thanksgiving and Christmas. Folks still don't know about us, and if they do know about us, it's usually not in a very flattering way.
Well, part of it is a paradigm problem where there are parts of the continuing church that genuinely believe they are the one true Anglican church.
Yeah,
And
or the
that
one
is-
true church, period.
That is not a healthy perspective.
No, it's not.
It
It's
is
not.
a much healthier perspective to say we are a valid part of the Anglican church, just like these other valid parts that share our beliefs essentially in
Right.
this.
I mean, there's a church in the continuing church that acts just like Rome. You want to be an Anglican, you got to be just like us. And we jokingly call that Archbishop the Pope of Athens, because you have to be just like us. And they
That
have a
is funny.
catechism.
That is funny.
It is, and I mean, believe me, there's ACC priests who will call their Archbishop that, because they have a catechism that's like that, reminds you of Rome.
Oh, their cannons are so big.
They're so big. And just like you'll hear on the internet and everywhere else, the Roman Catholics, we're the one true church, you'll hear it from the Archbishop and all them in their attitude and their, what they talk. They're the one true church. Everybody has to be like us. No, the UECNA under Bishop Robinson is Anglican. It is low church, a little more toward maybe the Reform side.
It has the same history.
Same history.
To say they're not legitimate, you're saying you're not legitimate yourself.
Too. I always like when I came here, and they wanted to talk to me about being conditionally ordained because I came out of the Reformed Episcopal Church. And I said, why? Well, we don't. So they gave me the boilerplate reasoning that most continuing bishops give to anybody who comes in, any priest who comes in. Well, my background, I never walk into something without knowing. And I knew that the Archbishop who was talking to me was created a bishop by Bishop Weigel down in Montevallo. I knew Bishop Weigel laid hands on my bishop, made him a bishop. I said, well, here's my apostolic succession. And I told him, and I got to this name, I mispronounced it on purpose. I think Weigel, his eyes lit up. I said, yeah, isn't that the guy that ordained you? It's a silly thing we continuing Anglicans do, especially our bishops. Okay, look at somebody who's coming from elsewhere. Okay, where the hands laid on them by a so-called female bishop. Well, you're not ordained. If you want to go deeper dive, okay, look at that. But don't just automatically assume because they came from the Reformed Episcopal Church or Fort Worth that they are not properly ordained. San Jacinto. Or even, South Carolina. Okay, they're women's ordination and all this, but they've never had a woman bishop. Okay, so is this Bishop of South Carolina? Why is he not validly consecrated a bishop?
I've never heard a good answer to that. I've just never heard it. It's like the deposit of faith left every diocese of the Episcopal Church on January 1st, 1978. Like, that sounds crazy to me.
Yeah, it is. And it is. I mean, that was just a hyperbolic reaction to what happened. And then you had Vicki Jean Robinson, and it's always CCC. And I'm like, you got to take this on a case-by-case basis. Okay? I've had folks come here from the Episcopal Church, and I will say, what? Who is your bishop? Okay? When y'all came, when were you confirmed? And you told me, okay, I knew it wasn't Bishop G. Okay, valid consecration. I have others. And what was your bishop's name? Well, her name was, don't even give me the name. I'm sorry, you weren't confirmed. Some get mad and leave, but some have stayed. I mean, I'm not going to change. You weren't according to Scripture.
You got to have standards.
You got to have standards. And Scripture says, and the Episcopal Church in that diocese violated the Scriptures, so we have to make it right for the sacraments. So you take it on a case-by-case basis. And we need to do that with clergy. Father Gloria's ACNA. Is he not validly ordained? Well, guess what? He is licensed to do everything a priest is to do here. And if I will raise holy heck if he decides to, come into APEC and they go, oh, we got to reordain him. For 5 years he was okay.
He's in the Diocese of All Nations.
Mm-hmm.
He has orders essentially through the Nigerian church, if you go back. And can you do much better than that?
Can you do much
I don't
better
think
than
so.
that? Yeah, so you got all this silliness, and we need to get focused on the gospel and the kingdom and stop the tribalism within Anglicanism and within Christianity, or the secularists and the Muslims will destroy the church in the West.
So turning this into a constructive direction, we have been talking about all this division within the conservative Anglo-Catholic spheres of the church. So in the midst of all this division and different basically bishops fighting for territory and things like that, what are unity points for Orthodox Anglo-Catholics? And I've been thinking about this, and I think it is the Anglo-Catholic societies that were set up 100 years ago, generally within the high church Episcopal context. And so I did a little bit of research on those, Father. And the most prominent for our purpose that we already participate in is the Society of King Charles the Martyr, which is it has two different branches, one in the UK that goes back to the 1890s, and one in America that goes back to about then. And historically, it has been centered in the northern part of the United States, where there's a large body of Anglo-Catholics. But in the last 25, 30 years, as the Episcopal Church has had a lot of demographic change come through, the membership center of gravity has changed to where it is no longer a majority Episcopal membership. It's actually I think there's still the plurality, but the ACNA has a big chunk, the continuing church has a big chunk, the ordinariate has more than I would have thought. And when you add up all these other non-tech members, it's more than the tech members. That is one society that I would think virtually every continuing churchman would ascribe to its beliefs.
You don't have to be a church named after St. Charles. He's just somebody what did St. Charles do for the church? He gave his life for the church. That's something we should remember, affirm, and talk about.
He preserved our apostolic succession.
He preserved it. He preserved the church. And so you don't have to be a member, St. Charles. You can be something else. And I didn't get to go this year to it, but last year we went, and I would say around the table, the majority of the folks for the Tennessee Valley area were continuers.
Well, you have the demographic change unfolding before your eyes, where a lot of the older members tend to be from the Episcopal Church, and then you have younger members who are from different Anglican jurisdictions.
We had one priest came from South Carolina to our meeting one year. So that's that. You got St. Charles. You have Society of Mary, which I am a part of.
So that's another body. So we've got the Society of St. Charles that needs statewide chapters. That essentially any continuing church could raise their hand and say, we want to be a chapter for our state. And all you have to do is hold a mass on January 30th, and then do something for Restoration Day
in May.
At the end of May. It's a very low barrier to entry, and it's something that
easy to do.
It's easy. Okay, so the Society of Mary is another one. This is the Anglican Society of Mary comes from the UK, much like the Society of King
Saint-
Charles the Martyr, but it's also open to Anglicans. And I believe the head of it right now is the Bishop of Springfield, if my memory is right.
Remember, it's correct. And you can go to the website is SOMAMERICA, Society of Mary America.org, and it's easy to join. You get, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, and you get a magazine, you get all this stuff, and to follow it. Now, to be a priest or in the Society of Mary, it's a little more that you have to do than in the Society of King Charles. So you'll have things like Annunciation or her birth. You will remember those things. Not that we're worshiping Mary, but you're remembering the first Christian. You're remembering the Mother of God. You're remembering the Blessed Virgin. And you do that. You say the Angelus. I now say that, usually at noon unless I'm celebrating Mass. And there's certain things you do. It's just certain points in the life of the church that you remember the Blessed Mother when it comes into the liturgy of the church. It's like our vestments. For Advent, in the Anglican Church, it's always been blue. Now, people have convinced themselves it's because of the dye in England for purple was less than whatever because of different muscles and stuff.
I've heard that it's like faded purple and it looked blue, and they just thought.
Right, and no, it was blue. We were the dowry of Mary. Anglican tradition has always had Advent is in blue.
And in the Middle Ages, blue was the color of Mary. We think of that as a masculine color now, but in the Middle Ages, it was deeply associated with Mary.
If you notice most pictures of the Blessed Virgin, she has blue on her somewhere. Okay? And that's what we did. So when we ordered our vestments, next Advent and our Marian feast days, between now and next Advent, you will see blue, reminding us we are Anglicans, that we hold the Blessed Virgin in high regard. You can hold to the Marian dogmas. It's not dogma in the Anglican Church like it is in Rome, but that's pious opinion. You can hold to them. You can, do whatever you can, and they actually have a society for Anglicans here for that. They have that website, and you can go, and you don't have to be a priest. You can be a layperson, and you can form your own cell. They call it 5 members. And I think we're up to about 3, maybe 4 here. And once we get to 5, we can go to a cell. I become the priest in charge of the cell.
I think 12 for a ward.
12 for a ward. The first and most successful church now becomes the ordinariate was Our Lady of the Atonement. It was started by Father Phillips back in the 1980s. And he dedicated the church to the Blessed Virgin. And he came out of the Episcopal Church. Now that probably got some folks, Anglicans who for some reason have forgotten Anglican history and theology. And also Protestants wanting to twist their heads. When he retired a few years ago, his church had grown to, he was doing up to 4 or 5 masses on Sunday full. He had a school of 550 students. This church had been blessed, and they centered on Christ. If you watched every mass, they were centered on Christ, but they remembered the Blessed Virgin. And that helped so much because the Blessed Virgin prays for us, just like all the saints do. So that's another thing that the continuing church, Anglo-Catholics, whatever, but mainly the continuing church can join that, and it will help us connect with other Orthodox communities and churches throughout here. I mean, we get a list now, the Society of St. Charles. We get a list. If you're somewhere and it's a feast day and you're not here, but you're saying, is there a church? Oh, there's a church here, and you can go there. And that's what would happen in Society of Mary.
I think there's a third one, too, I've come across, Father, which is called the Guild of All Souls.
Mm-hmm.
And it has another low barrier to entry where you just have All Souls Day, which is something we do anyway.
Yeah.
That I think that is the only requirement beyond real easy check-the-box stuff to be a member of the Guild of All Souls. and it has a North American chapter just like the other two. So those are three traditional Anglo-Catholic societies. And then the question is, why is it so imperative?
Forward in the Faith.
Forward in Faith, another one. It's
And
a
that
little bit younger.
It started in the UK, because if you go Forward in the Faith, you'll go to England. You have to go Forward in the Faith, NA, North America, and it will take you to the North American one. And it is younger.
It's
And
1980s, I think, or 70s.
yeah, something around that. And they every year have a synod, so to speak, and somewhere, one year might be in Texas, and they'll go in for 3 or 4 days. You'll have bishops coming in, and you'll see just how big it is. It's mainly Anglo-Catholics, but anybody can go to it. It's Forward in the Faith. They are actually gotten to the point now where they can help fund seminarians. Now, the only requirement is you have to hold up to the Catholic faith, the Anglo-Catholic faith, part of Anglicanism, and they will help, fund your seminary.
I think they have a history with 2 different jurisdictions or dioceses that they helped get started over the last 30, 40 years. One of them being the Episcopal Missionary Church, EMC. I think it's got about 10 parishes, and it's essentially a continuing church, except their version of Bishop Chambers was a Fort Worth bishop. I can't remember his name right now, so I'm drawing a blank. But they had a lot of backing from Forward in Faith. And I think the Diocese of All Saints has a relationship with Forward in Faith as well.
I can see that. With their bishop, I can see that. I can see that.
So why is it so important that continuing churchmen join these bodies? Well, Father, I think it is because, frankly, we don't have a lot of numbers. Okay, so the total numbers of continuing churchmen is not a big number.
No.
So where can we punch above our weight and have a larger voice? Well, I think it's in these bodies that are open to Anglicans, that if we had just mass participation from the membership that we have in the continuing church, we would have a real voice within those organizations.
Oh, yeah.
Even greater than our numbers.
Right.
And we would be able to, at least within this realm, have an equal seat at the table with other bodies of Anglicans.
Right.
And we'll kind of inherit the institutions over time. Whereas the Episcopal Church's numbers continue to decline, the same thing that has already happened within the Society of King Charles the Martyr will happen in these other societies as well. Where if we take the crystal ball out, look 50 years, we'll inherit these societies if we join them in mass right now.
Right, and it gives us credibility.
That's true too.
It gives us a lot of credibility because we're this nebulous group out there, and most of the times you see us, we're complaining about what we're against. I mean, when I got here, when a visitor walked through the door, believe me, they were bombarded with what we are against, and I'm like, stop that, because you're running them off. Nobody wants to hear that. They'll figure it out when they're coming in. They're already having some issues with where they're going to church now. They don't need to come here and be bombarded with negativity. Well, it's the same like with Nashotah House. Nashotah House would love to have more continuing seminarians.
That's probably the most prominent place of a unity point for all different types of Orthodox Anglo-Catholics. It's Nashotah House, where that's the one place where all these different jurisdictions have their postulants get together and break bread and talk and debate. And
you've met many continuing seminarians from other groups.
Oh, they want us. It's the kind of thing where Nashotah wants as many continuing postulants to go there as possible. And that's a good thing.
Oh, it's a good thing, yes.
It's good for Nashotah House, and it's good for the continuing church.
Because it helps us with our education of clergy, which has been spotty at best with how we've educated our clergy. Sometimes you'll send them off to these very Protestant seminaries, and then you wonder why you get the clergy you get. It's like what Vodi Bachman said, a pastor, used to be the Southern Baptist Convention president. He said, we need to stop being surprised when we send our children off to Rome and they become Romans. He's talking about the public school system. Well, in the continuing church, we need to stop being surprised when we send all of our seminarians off to these schools or these seminaries which don't uphold, one, maybe the Anglican faith, and they don't uphold the Catholic faith and traditions, and we get these guys back and we wonder, what is this? What's going on?
The people they have teaching at Nashotah are very, very impressive.
Oh, yeah.
Canon Greg Peters, that's Ray Sutton's canon.
Yeah.
Can you get any more?
We have so many opportunities to do things. And I know the APA, Archbishop Jones, is sending his seminarians there. So that's a good thing.
There's ACC seminarians.
So
there
ACC
too.
seminarians, and that's gonna be good for the continuing church because it gets us out of our bubble.
Mhm.
It gets us out of our bubble.
What Bishop Giffen was talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so you're gonna come into contact and with other Anglicans and other Christians. I just had a correspondence with a gentleman in Kentucky who is finishing up Nashotah House next semester in the spring. He's a Baptist, and I thought that was odd. He went to Nashotah House as a Baptist minister, and he did. And he's got his questions now about, he goes there, and eventually he's on the Canterbury Trail. And so he does come and becomes a clergyman in the Anglican Church. We're going to have he went to a Baptist seminary, now he's going to an Anglican seminary. He's been in ministry for a long time. You got a very well-rounded pastor now. Instead of just what one archdeacon of the ACC told me many, many years ago. He lived down in Pensacola. He said, how we used to pick our next priest and everything? No, you sent him to seminary. He goes, no. Hold a mirror up to him. If you had a breath, hey, you'd be a good priest. Tongue in cheek, but you sit around and you look at, you go to synods and you go to these meetings and you look, and you can tell which priests have been trained and which ones have just, you don't know. Can they? I've been in places where a priest could not even conduct morning prayer. That's basic. Everybody makes mistakes, but I'm talking about conduct morning prayer. I've watched, I remember one time I was somewhere and I was sitting next to an ACC priest who had been a Roman Catholic priest, and we're watching this priest celebrate Mass, and we're constantly looking at each other going, what is this? We had a Mass to be celebrated the next day. This priest said, I'm going to go ask him if we can assist him at the altar. And he wouldn't let us because we were just watching going, oh my gosh, that's, where were you trained? And that's something in the continuing church we need. We got a lot of good priests, and even the ones who make these mistakes are not well trained. They're good men, but they need to be trained, and we just don't train them. That's one of my big things every synod. Why aren't we sitting down with the bishops going, hey, making sure everybody is trained, but they don't, and that's a problem. And Nashotah House will solve all that.
It's like Noah expecting God to build the ark for him.
Yeah.
No, God told him it was coming and said, build the ark.
Yeah.
And then Noah had to build the ark.
He had to go out and cut down the trees, make the tar, make the pitch, do all this stuff. God said, hey, it's coming, get ready. Okay.
So we need to train our people.
We need to train our people.
Nashotah does a great job of doing that, has like a almost 200-year track record of it.
Yeah, they can do that. And even in the local parishes. I put everybody through wanted to be confirmed through a more rigorous confirmation class this year. We started off with 15 people. The bishop confirmed 10. We lost a third. Some people, oh my gosh, that's horrible. I'm like, no, this is what the church believes. You have to hold to this. And people were coming here having one expectation. Some of them coming thinking they can just bring the Baptist church with them, or whatever other church they're with them, or the Reformed church with them. And you're like, no, you have to get rid of this parts of what you used to hold to be part of the ancient church. You have to make that decision. So up to close to 5 people said, no, can't do that. Okay. No hard feelings. I ran into one of the families last night. They came in to evening prayer, and they attend another Presbyterian church. Okay, wonderful. Go where the Holy Spirit leads you. It's not, oh my gosh, we've lost them. No, they are not going to be a good fit here. And that's what your confirmation classes are for, or your new acquires classes. As our children get older, and now it's time for them to start getting to confirmation, well, I'm going to have 2 confirmations, an acquire confirmation for adults, and then one for the kids. And that will be run separately, but you have to teach the faith to anybody who wants to go. And in the continuing church, I could say we've not done a very good job of that. So we need to get into these societies that will help us focus on, in the Shoda House, teaching the faith, not just showing up for coffee hour on Sunday and, oh yeah, by the way, we're having Mass. Come to Mass, come to here, do things. So
all these different societies and Neshota provide a pathway to resources for Christian formation, where they give us materials that we can do a Sunday school class off. They give you all kinds of different things. Neshota has this thing where you become like a member of the chapter and you get their academic stuff or access to it. Like that's essentially adult Sunday school materials.
Oh yeah, adult Sunday school materials. So there's a lot of things that we can connect with that we in the continuing church do not have. And if we do, they're just kind of reinventing the wheel. And sometimes what they're reinventing the wheel with is not as good, as what is already out there. So why reinvent the wheel when you can go sit on the Shoda House, you got your Sunday school material. You can go to one of these other societies, you got this material, that material. You don't have to worry about that. And that connection helps grow the kingdom, which is our job, grow the kingdom, add bodies to the faith.
Well, we become less atomized. So instead of the dynamic of these different small continuing jurisdictions having 2 or 3 parishes in a geographic region, you become very atomized. And these societies in Neshota House become like a focal point to prevent that atomization, to where you are interacting with like-minded travelers that have been down the same road before and have already traversed it and can say, here's the map.
Yeah, here's
Use
the
this
map. Avoid these pitfalls that we've seen, and that's what we should be doing. And that's what we'll do. Maybe in next year, we'll see some realignment going on. The ACNA hopefully will be done with all their silliness and their leadership. Maybe the GAFCON will have come out strong and good, and the Archbishop of Nigeria is now, the voice of the continuing church, the first among equals, and that'll be wonderful. And then maybe we in the continuing church will have come out of our bubble, out of our shell, out of our bunker, and look around and go, oh, it's not 1970s TEC anymore. Let's join the rest of the world.
The world's a little different.
I mean, it's like Albania was a communist country, and it was an isolationist. Then when the Iron Curtain fell and Albania came out, or you can just go Kyrgyzstan, when Bishop Schneider, Athanasius Schneider, when the Iron Curtain fell, and these were Germans who had been forcibly moved by the Russians for slave labor into these other places, and that's why you have Germans in Kazakhstan. Archbishop Schneider, in his book, This is the Lord, when the Iron Curtain fell, they were like, oh my gosh, how's it? And they were shocked what they saw, but they saw a totally different church than when the curtain went up. We self-exiled. It's time for us to rejoin the Anglican communion. Yeah. And there will be a shock that it's not the Anglican communion, hopefully is not the Anglican communion of Vicki Dean Robinson and Tech, but there are good, solid Anglicans out there we can be in communion with and have fellowship with, and it will help us.
There's about 30% of the ACNA that I find indistinguishable from us. Just the same.
Easy 30%. And there's no reason why we're not in communion with them. There's no valid
Might be more
reason.
than 30%. I'm just picking an arbitrary number.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, we know of at least 3 dioceses, and and what about the EMC with, Bishop Millsap?
Yeah.
Up Mount Eagle, close to Swanee? Okay, yeah, he's a small jurisdiction. Okay, so what? They're good, solid people, and we both know one of his priests.
But he did something that the other presiding bishops or archbishops of continuing bodies wasn't willing to do, which was sign that concordant with Foley Beach.
Yeah.
I don't know, 5-6 years ago, whenever that was. And it's different.
Yeah, it's different. But he reached out, and he reaches out. And when you reach out, will it be perfect? No. There'll be mistakes, and you adjust, and you learn, but you keep reaching out because it's not about your fiefdom. It's about the kingdom of God. Whose church is it? It's Jesus Christ's church. It's not Bishop so-and-so or Father so-and-so. It's, church. This church is Jesus Christ's church. I'm just a temporary guard dog caretaker. You know, I have a infinite. I mean, I don't have an infinite number of years. I'm finite. 15, 20 years, there'll be another priest here. 10 years, there'll be another bishop here. But the church continues. What are we leaving? That's something I've started looking at with my children, my grandchildren, and I don't have, and my grandchildren I don't have, and all that. What am I leaving them in my culture? Well, what am I leaving my family, and what are we leaving for the next generations in the church? So if we get outside this mindset and understand, I'm just temporary, and we're only here temporary. I mean, how many priests have come through this door in this parish? I'm one of what, the 7th or 8th one? Okay. How many bishops have been here? 2, 1, 2. Okay. The continuing church is only thinking right here, right now. Well, what are you going to be doing in 15 years? What are you going to be doing in 20 years when all the senior leadership is gone? They've gone to their judgment. What are they leaving? You know, are you leaving the kingdom stronger, or are you leaving the kingdom weaker? If you're leaving the kingdom weaker, you should fear and tremble before the throne of God. If you're leaving it as strong as you can, hopefully you're going to hear, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And that's what our goal should be.
That's a great ending point.
It is a great ending point. All right. Well, thank you all for listening, and we'll see you soon.
We'll see you again.
Thank you.